It must be time. It's a business day present.
Yes.
Oh, it is time for Risk of the Business Babes, and the babe herself will pick it up from here.
Thank you, the remarkable Ron, my producer. And welcome to Richmond Business Babes here on WRWK 93.9 FM, The Work. And also now as an encore presentation on WRIR, Richmond Independent Radio 97.3 FM. I'm your host, Lisa Linnell, and we have a great show lined up today. It's all about the summer of success. The sky's the limit. First up, we are going to meet Elizabeth Willett. She is a pilot and flight school instructor with Hanover County Airport. And then at the bottom of the hour, we're going to meet Laya Barak. She is a co-founder and co-owner of Broth Masters. And then at the end of the hour, we are going to meet with a return guest, Amanda Rae Linas, who is the owner of Beloved Pet and Equine Photography, and now is also the author of a new book that she's going to share with us. So we are going to be flying high, the remarkable Ron, my producer.
Stellar folks.
Yeah.
Always.
And the reason we kind of are starting off with this aviation theme, I have a confession to make. One of the original guests I have planned for this show was also going to be a return guest. His name is Pete Ballard, and he was on last year, if you recall, Ron. He is instrumental in a nonprofit group called Capital Wings, and they bring all the World War II planes to local airports. And so I had reached out to him because I thought it would just be really cool. You know, it's Father's Day month, and he was on before, and it was a lot of fun. And he was available, but then something came up where he would be out of town involved with Capital Wings, and he couldn't make it. So then I started getting on this aviation kick, and I talked to Keith Bryan of Hanover County Airport. He's the manager there. And he referred me to Elizabeth Willett, who is a pilot and flight school instructor. So it's really going to be fun.
Cool.
But before Elizabeth comes on, I have to give a really big shout out to my friend, Patty Manos, which this all ties into aviation. And I'm going to tell you how. Patty recently gave me a children's book for my granddaughter, Harriet, who turned 1 last weekend.
Wow.
And the name of the book was called Brave Harriet. So you may be thinking, Ron, why is she talking about her granddaughter's book and Brave Harriet, right? The reason I'm talking about it is because Brave Harriet is about a female character in history that I never heard of. My girlfriend Patty Manos never heard of. Probably a lot of people haven't ever heard of her. When we think of female pilots historically, I think most people think of Amelia Earhart. I know I do. But Harriet, whose name was Harriet Quimby, was the first female to get a pilot's license in the United States. And she was the first female, Harriet Quimby, to cross the English Channel as well. So when my friend Patty saw this book, Brave Harriet, she was drawn to it because, of course, my 1-year-old granddaughter's name is Harriet. And she actually read the story and she said, this is a phenomenal story about someone who is such an impressive female historical figure that most people, I would assume, really don't know about. So if you do have some time and you're interested in aviation and you're interested in women, you know, breaking records and doing things that, you know, 100 years ago, 100 plus years ago, because it was 1912 when she did it, you know, it was just such an impressive feat. And the book is called Brave Harriet. It's actually written by Marissa Moss, which maybe one day we'll get her on. But it's all about Harriet Quimby, who was the first female to fly across the English Channel and also the first woman in America to get a pilot's license. And what I learned is the day that she flew across the English Channel was the day after the Titanic sank.
Wow.
So the media, and Ron and I, you and I were just having a conversation about media, right? The media was focused so much, of course, on this, world event of the Titanic sinking that her notable achievement was sort of played second fiddle to it.
Place, yeah.
Right. Which, I mean, the Titanic is a Titanic, but
Relatively
still,
speaking.
that's probably why most people don't know about Harriet Quimby. So I just wanted to share that little sort of historical tidbit that I found interesting, given the theme of our show is the sky is the limit. And our first guest, I believe, is on the line,
She is
Elizabeth Willett. So let me tell you a little bit about Elizabeth before I bring her on. She grew up in an aviation family. Her dad flew for United Airlines for many years. And in high school, she actually took flying lessons. I don't know a single person who, first of all, is a pilot or ever took flying lessons. So in high school, that's pretty cool. But then she kind of just didn't pursue it. And she graduated from William and Mary and became a school psychologist, which is, of course, a noble profession. But she still had that bug. She still, flying was just something that she always was drawn to. And she went back to Hanover County Airport and took a discovery flight. And in her words, I quote, "I was immediately hooked." So I am going to let her pick it up from there. Welcome, Elizabeth Willett, pilot and flight instructor at Hanover County Airport. Welcome to Richmond Business Babes.
Hi there, Lisa. I'm glad to talk to you guys today.
I'm really glad that you made the time to come on. Thank you so much. You have an interesting story. Your whole family has sort of a background in aviation, so it's, in your blood, so to speak. And so at a very young age, in high school, you took flying lessons. What was that like?
I did. And, looking back on it now, it's one of those things where I think aviation is not necessarily a career or a hobby that people often think of unless they're already connected to the aviation community, which I was. So that's pretty common that those of us who are flying now have some sort of past connection. But it's amazing and it's really wonderful. And it is, some people do yoga, they get into other activities that quiet their brain and they can really focus on. Flying is one of those things that's what that does for me.
Wow.
You can take off and the magic of leaving the earth it never goes away. At least it doesn't for me. And you refine new skills and I think you find new confidence and you learn more about yourself at the same time that you're getting a different perspective. Just on yourself and on the world in general.
Right. And physically a different perspective, obviously being, thousands of feet in the air as well. So
exactly right. Aviation these days is so commonplace that no one thinks anymore of the magic of just putting your bags and yourself on an airplane and finding yourself in a different place a couple of hours later. That's how safe it is these days, of course. But going out and flying yourself is a really unique experience. And it's also a lot of fun to be able to share with family and friends. And flight instruction is the same way. You mentioned that I have a long history as a school psychologist, so I've been around education for many years, but I've never taught. And being able to take students who don't know anything about a small plane and then taking them all the way to a check ride and watching them get their certificate is just really satisfying. Obviously satisfying for them, but it's fun to watch.
Right.
It's fun to watch other people grow and increase their skills as well.
Sure. And I mean, I would imagine that if they wind up actually getting their certificate, and when you say certificate, are you talking about pilot's license?
Exactly
Okay.
right. Yes.
When you have been instrumental in it, obviously, if you're going to get to the point where you have a pilot's license, you've got to love it as much as you do, right? So they've got to love it as much as you do.
They really do. And it is a commitment. And we learn from each other, as we're in the plane. You develop a really close relationship with people when you're flying in a very small aircraft. There's a lot of trust going on while that learning is happening as well. But yes, that is the private pilot certificate. And, the minimum hours for that is 40. The average is a little bit higher than that. But
40 hours and you are a licensed pilot?
Exactly right.
That's kind of scary to me. I don't know why.
You can test
exactly right. And a lot of it is.
I had no idea. I thought it was in hours and hours and don't they? Oh, maybe I'm thinking of commercial airline.
And you may be commercial is closer to about 250 hours.
Okay,
but those 40 hours do belie the fact that there's a lot of studying that goes on. And for every pilot certificate, you're not just a pilot, you're also a meteorologist and a lawyer. The regulations.
Okay.
There's a lot that goes into it. But it is an incredibly satisfying thing to do. It was satisfying to get my own license, and it was very satisfying to help other people get theirs as well.
Wonderful. Well, are you also a commercial pilot?
I am. All flight instructors are also required to be commercial pilots. And just to give you a little bit of background, I first started flying at the Hanover Airport through Heart of Virginia Aviation in 2018. And I think I was possibly the only woman. There may have been another woman who was also taking lessons. And, 7 years later, there are many women at Hanover who are pursuing flying careers and flying certificates just for fun.
Good.
So that has changed substantially just in the last 7 years.
Were you the type of child, let's say, who loved, amusement park rides and roller coasters and all that? Was that thrilling to you?
I'm glad you asked that because I don't.
Oh, okay. I feel better about that because I'm not a ride
people
person.
People think that you have to be a daredevil to do this, and that's not the case.
Okay, interesting.
I
thought you were going to say yes.
I don't even love heights, but in a plane, it's a little bit different.
Oh, you don't like heights? That's interesting. Okay.
Don't.
How much did it cost? Now, how old are you now, Elizabeth Willett?
I am 58.
5'8"?
58.
58.
So
okay. You sound much younger. Okay. So back then in high school, when you were taking lessons and trying to earn that pilot's certificate, the pilot's license for 40 hours worth of, I guess, in the air time, right? 40 hours of.
Right.
Okay. So how expensive was that then and how expensive is it now? Because in my mind, I think of it as a very expensive training process, but maybe it's not.
And that really is literally $1 million question. Yes, it was very inexpensive back in the day.
Okay.
You could, just to give you an example, when I was taking these lessons back at 17 or 18, it was inexpensive enough that my dad and a co-pilot of his went ahead and just bought a small airplane to teach both of their children in. That is much less likely to happen now. And it is a lot more expensive, which is why I think most of the folks that are going through training these days are looking at it as a career. It's an investment into a career, but it is not inexpensive, and insurance and fuel prices are a big part of that. These days, flying, if you're including an instructor, is going to average about $250 to $275 an hour.
An hour.
The best way to make that less expensive is to do lots of what we call ground school and do a lot of self-study and make sure you know what you're going to practice when you get into the plane that day, and you're as prepared as possible. And that's a great way of making it less expensive. Also for women, there are a number of wonderful scholarships out there. Some of which are aimed towards specific groups, like girls who are in their junior or senior year of high school.
Interesting.
And are considering a career in aviation. So there are absolutely ways to go about making it less expensive.
Excellent.
And there's some groups. One of them is Women in Aviation. The other one is called the 99s, which was founded by Amelia Earhart herself.
Okay.
There are lots of options out there to just assist with the cost of instruction.
That's great to know. I just did some quick math while you were talking. You said it was approximately $250 an hour. If you need 40 hours, 10 hours would be 2,500. So $10,000 would get you 40 hours, right?
Right.
So
Exactly right.
when you think about it, that, how much like college is, right? I mean, if this is your dream and this is your goal, that's a bargain. 10,000. I mean, then you're a licensed pilot.
Right.
So once
There
you
are
become,
many.
yeah,
Go ahead.
no, you go ahead. There are many ways.
I was about to say there are many other ratings that you would need to get to what's called an ATP, which would be flying for the airlines. But there's so many other aviation careers that don't involve flying for the airlines. You can fly corporate jets, for example, which are, your smaller planes. They may carry anywhere between 8 and 16 people. You get a lot more flexibility with that job. So there are a lot of other options besides, everyone thinks about, I'll fly for Delta, I'll fly for United, and those are wonderful jobs. But they require years of experience after you finish your training. And there are many other ways to get into the aviation world, and there's a lot of flexibility there.
And Ron had a question. My producer, the remarkable Ron. What was it?
Oh, yeah. A friend of mine joined the Civil Air Patrol, got a lot of hours in there, and I think maybe even they had some training options.
Absolutely. Yes, that's another really good example of if you've been bitten by the bug and this is really something you're interested in doing, there are ways to get those hours and to get that training. You just have to be creative about it.
Yeah, where there's a will, there's a way, right?
Exactly.
That's nice. So you mentioned that many more women are seeking a career in aviation. I did a little bit of research, and according to the Pilot Institute report from 2023, so 2 years ago, FAA certified pilots, women represented 9.57% of all FAA certified pilots. There were at that time 756,000 plus, so I'm rounding it up, 756,000 pilots, and of that number, 72,000 were female. So they estimated it was slightly under 10%. So your observation is you've seen much greater interest in recent years with females?
Absolutely. I think that 10% feels fairly accurate.
Okay.
And when you get to the air transport pilot level, which is the highest level you can achieve, and those are our airline pilots, that percentage decreases to, I believe, about 6%.
Okay.
So that 10% probably includes the private pilots, the commercial pilots, and the air transport pilots. But yes, I've seen so much more interest in women coming to the airport and learning to fly. Some of them are doing this separate from a college degree, and some of them are actually in an aviation college degree through some of the universities that are around. Some of them are online, and some of them are actually on the ground. But I've seen a lot more interest, and when they break out the number of student pilot certificates, I think that's really where you see the jump in women's interest.
Good. That's great. Well, I like the fact that you brought up that there's so many scholarships out there. Now, are you employed by a particular airline in addition to being a flight instructor at the Hanover County Airport?
I am not currently, and one of the things that is a requirement is that once you finish all of your training, you still have to have a minimum number of hours to say fly for the airlines or fly for corporate outfits. And so what typically happens is that most people, the easiest route to go is to go ahead and get your certificates and then flight instruct. Because as I'm instructing in the plane, my student is gathering hours, but I'm also gaining hours myself. And so the only thing I'm doing right now with aviation is the instructing, which I absolutely love. It's a lot of fun. And in the next couple of years, I'll go ahead and leave the public school system as a psychologist, and hopefully at that point have the hours to consider a professional career, probably doing corporate flight.
Oh, corporate flights. Okay. Not large airlines, but more just corporate.
Probably not.
Okay.
The large airlines have a maximum age of 65. So that's where you see our younger folks headed to.
Okay.
I don't have quite enough years to make that make sense, but there is not an age limit for corporate flying. So once again, that provides additional flexibility if you decide the airlines aren't for you, or maybe this is a second career.
Yeah. What attracts you about the flying corporate jets? So in other words, company owned jets or planes that are owned by individuals who are, I guess, very wealthy, or corporations that own them. So like if you did go that route, once you resigned from being a school psychologist, how do you get your gigs, so to speak? Like, are you telling, the Fredericksburg Airport and the Hanover County Airport, hey, I'm available, or how does that work?
For a lot of folks, that is a great question. For a lot of folks, there are conferences that go on across the country, held by different organizations, and many of these corporate outfits actually have meet and greets with their chief pilots. They hold interviews throughout the year, depending on what their needs are for staffing, and that is the most likely route that I will
like a
take.
Job fair, for corporate.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it is
how
a very
fun is that? I bet that's really happening. What a great job fair to go. And it's funny, our theme song is called Job Fair. That's funny. But where is that usually held, or is it always at a different venue throughout the country?
It's always at a different venue from year to year. I believe last year it might have been in Denver, Colorado. This coming year, I think it's probably back on the East Coast.
So do you know a lot of corporate pilots already where you can say, hey, I need to go to Boston this weekend. Can you fly me there? Like, is that what the world is like in your world?
It really isn't. It used to be. My dad flew back in the 50s, and that was things were a little bit.
He was in the Catch Me If You Can movie era. Remember that movie, Catch Me If You Can,
yes,
with Leonardo DiCaprio. My favorite scene is just like emblazed in my mind is when he's walking through the airport. It's so 60s. He's walking through the airport with 4 or 5 stewardesses on each arm, and then the music's playing, Come Fly With Me, I love that. That was a great movie. Did you enjoy that movie? Were you like, oh, that's not the way it is?
I did. And a lot of folks consider that just the golden age of flying. Back then it was a little bit more elegant. Seats were larger than milk crates. Everybody was a little bit more comfortable for sure.
Yeah. And you dressed.
I loved it.
It was an event to get on a plane. You didn't just wear your pajamas. You dressed.
It was
to the nines.
Event.
Yeah. So, but when you watch that movie and your dad watches it, because he was in that age, right? Like, is he like, oh, it really wasn't like that, or he said it really was?
No, I think that it really was. And I am old enough that I certainly remember flying in the 70s.
Yeah.
Was not still significantly different, and because we flew on
big
called them, buddy passes, so they were free passes, space available, because you were considered to be representing the airline. We absolutely flew in dress clothes.
Yeah,
my dad had to have a tie on, but at the same time, before the era of upgrades and frequent flyer miles and that kind of thing, the most likely seats that were available were first class seats, and they were something to behold back in the day.
Yeah.
So I remember those from the very early years.
That's nice.
Regulation and all that.
Well, a dear friend of mine, Cindy, and I flew to Acapulco, which I don't think anybody really goes there anymore. And we paid for coach, but they had some extra first class seats, and they're like, would you like to fly first class? And we're like, okay. So that was nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, so I don't even know how I got it, off course here. You have all your pilot jokes, I know. But so in a couple of years, you're thinking of becoming a corporate pilot. You're going to go to the job fair, wherever it is at that point. And then what will your life be like?
You know, corporate flying is a little bit different from airline flying because so much of it is on demand.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of being scheduled, you might get a call saying, hey, we have some folks that need to go to San Francisco tomorrow morning. We need you here at 7:30 in the morning. And then you'll be there.
Mm-hmm.
The type of corporate flying really varies significantly.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is very much on demand like that. And some corporate outfits actually do run a little bit more like the airlines, and they try to schedule people out.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things that I find about the differences between the flying is that we all know what it's like to get on a major airline and they shut the doors and the cockpit doors shut and you don't see the pilots until you land.
Yeah.
And corporate flying's not quite like that. So you have much more of a personal connection with the people that you're flying.
Mm.
And I think that would be a lot of fun. Sometimes you're flying families.
Yeah.
Sometimes you may not know everyone you fly, but the door is open and you're not just flying the plane. A lot of times you're stocking the plane as well. So
Okay.
it's a
So
much
you're almost
more
like
hands-on kind
a
of
flight
flying, much more
attendant,
personal.
sort of pseudo flight attendant as well.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, that's cool. I mean, it is, that's great. Well, Elizabeth Willett, am I pronouncing your is it Willett or Willett?
It's Willett.
Willett. Okay. Elizabeth Willett, pilot and flight school instructor at Hanover Airport. Before we let you go, because we're going to have to wrap up, what can you tell some of our listeners there if they're sort of hearing this and saying, that has always been a dream of mine, but I did not think I could ever even come close to considering achieving that dream. What would your advice be to them?
I would suggest that you do it exactly what I did and walk into your local flight school and say, hey, I would like a discovery flight. And
define discovery flight. What is a discovery flight?
A discovery flight can either be 30 minutes or an hour, and you show up and you will go out with a flight instructor in one of the planes. And it is the kind of thing where you can say something like, I just want to get in the plane and I want you to fly me around and I want to see how this feels. A lot of people haven't been in small planes before. Okay. Or, depending on your comfort level, you might say, hey, I'm comfortable if you would let me fly the plane a little bit. And we do this all the time.
Oh.
I take out discovery flight passengers and I will take off, and once we get to a certain altitude and the plane is trimmed out and it's just in cruise, I will absolutely hand over the controls to whoever's with me if that's what they'd like to do.
I'm getting chills just listening to that.
And let them fly the plane themselves.
That would not be me. That would not be me. Oh, how much does it cost? Ron wants to know, how much does a discovery flight out of Hanover Airport cost?
I do not have the numbers currently, but it's much less expensive to do the 30 minutes. And honestly, if you've never been in a small plane, 30 minutes might be plenty.
Okay.
It certainly gives you that taste. And, we have what we call light sport planes that are only 2-seat planes. So it would be the instructor and just you. And you can go out and do that at a much reduced cost versus taking one of our larger planes, which has 4 seats.
Okay.
And realistically only carries 2 passengers and 1 instructor.
And there are scholarships potentially available for females, high school students for that.
There absolutely are.
That's fantastic.
And, a quick Google search will lead you to those. There are a number of organizations that offer them. They tend to close in the springtime. Mm. AOPA, which is the Airplane Owners and Pilots Association, also does some very nice scholarships. And as a matter of fact, one of my students 2 years ago was a senior in high school, and she applied for a scholarship and received $10,000.
Beautiful. Wow. That's great. Well, Elizabeth Willett, tell everyone how they can get in touch with you or the flight school at Hanover County Airport.
Absolutely. They can reach me. They're welcome to reach me on my cell phone. My number is 804-338-2121, or they can also check out our flight school website, which is flyhova, and that's FLYHOVA.com.
All right. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for coming on Richmond Business Babes. And when you speak to Keith Bryan, the manager at Hanover, would you tell him thank you for helping? He was instrumental in connecting me with you. So I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. He is wonderful. And again, you know what? You don't even need to fly if you just want to talk about flying and your interest in it. We're always happy to talk because we're all aviation nuts, and it's hard to get us to stop talking about airplanes. So we're happy to talk.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on Richmond Business Babes, and all the best to you flying high this summer, Elizabeth Willett. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
You too. Thanks, Lisa.
Okay. All right. Well, this is Richmond Business Babes here on WRWK 93.9 FM, The Work. And also now we will be broadcasting as an encore presentation on WRIR, Richmond Independent Radio 97.3 FM. So we're very pleased about that arrangement as well. And this is Summer of Success. The sky's the limit. So we just spoke to Elizabeth Willett, pilot and flight school instructor. She made it sound so easy, didn't she? The remarkable Ron.
She did.
Just like, oh, it's no big deal. It's just fine. Anybody can do it. I couldn't do it. I shouldn't say I couldn't do it. I don't have a desire to do it. I just really, I want to be a passenger. I don't want to be a pilot.
Take a discovery. Take a discovery.
So I think our next guest is waiting in the
She's
wings.
here.
Is that
Yep.
correct? Okay. So we are going to meet with Laya Barak, who is the co-founder and co-owner of a food company called Broth Masters. And I'm going to hold up a little tiny piece of paper, which I'm sure nobody's going to see, but maybe you can see it on camera. And it's a picture of Laya, our guest, with her mother, Dorothy. And together they created Broth Masters, a broth, which has numerous health benefits. And I'm so happy that on such short notice, Laya decided to come on. So welcome to Richmond Business Babes.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Lisa.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I found out about you and your mom in, I'm going to say it was Woman's World magazine.
Yeah.
Was it Woman's
Women's
World?
World. Yeah, it was
Women's
like
World.
Mother's Day.
Yeah, I'm the type of person who buys those, women, first women, and all those like supermarket. I love them.
Yeah.
They're just so fun, right? So I was
Yeah.
reading about your transformation. You are the daughter, Dorothy's your mother, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So you were the one who was I'm not going to say ill, but had numerous health conditions, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've had Crohn's disease since I was 15 years old.
Okay.
And I've been a dancer choreographer for most of my life. So I had some pretty bad ankle injuries that led to a bunch of surgeries where they pump your system with all these antibiotics. And it sort of killed my entire bacteria in my gut and caused a pretty large inflammation in my Crohn's. So for years, I really couldn't eat very many things. I was in pain all the time. I really didn't want to go on Humira or Remicade just because it was, a hefty medication. And at the time, my family's always been healing through food, a little bit of Eastern and Western medicine to see what could really help. And we started researching just anti-inflammatory foods. And there wasn't much at the time, but I did find a website that was a Crohn's patient, and she was talking about bone broth. And before it was, now it's a huge thing.
Sure.
But at the time, no one was really making it. So my mother started to make it for me in Michigan and ship it to me in New York City because I was like, I'm not going to make this from scratch. So.
And then the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah, it was something I kind of got on it every single day. And within a month or two, my inflammation subsided and I was able to incorporate foods back into my diet. And it was really incredible. And my doctor, I had another major ankle surgery, and he told me that after a month of being on the bone broth, he said he has never seen a bone heal this quickly in an MRI post-surgery. So whether it's placebo or not, who knows? But
okay,
for me,
you attribute it to that, and so did your doctor.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, first of all, I'm so happy for you that you're healing. Are you 100% back, or 90%,
Yeah,
or?
I'm like 90%. I mean, Crohn's is not something that ever goes away completely, but I never have, major flare-ups anymore. And if I get off the bone broth for a little while, then, if I start to get a little bit of a flare, I just get right back on it and I get sort of back into the routine that I know really helps me.
Yeah,
Um,
I love the
but
way beef bouillon and all of that tastes. I
yeah.
love salty.
And I just, as a 43-year-old who, they say you need lots of protein now and calcium. Our bone broth has, 28 grams of protein in every pouch and 60% of your daily calcium intake in every pouch. So I usually do it. I just had it for lunch. So I usually do it for one meal a day.
That's great. Well, that's really great. And Leah, and am I pronouncing your name correctly? Laya
Yeah.
Barak?
Yep.
Is that right?
Perfect.
Okay. So, and we don't have a whole lot of time, and I will tell you in advance that I do want you to come back another time when I do a show that's all about food manufacturing,
Mhm.
because that's just I'd like to do a series of shows about that. I had talked to another gal, her name escapes me right now, but she manufactures pierogies, and there's just so much of an interest, especially for women entrepreneurs, in food manufacturing. So I really want to get into the nuts and bolts of that with you another time, and if your mom wants to
Sure.
come on as well. So, but I don't have a lot of time right now. But what was the what what happened to go from, hey mom, this is working for me, I feel
Mhm.
better, this is great, to let's make a business out of it? What was that jump?
Yeah. Honestly, it was a random Sunday in a February cold winter day that we had sort of had this dream of being able to help other people that had similar issues to myself. And my mother, she's always been a very heal the world type of person. She's an amazing human, and our
Oh,
whole family has sort of been like that. And this really helped me. And we had sort of talked about it, but never really imagined it. And one random Sunday, I wrote up a business proposal and I said, let's just try this and do it. And I sent her the business proposal, and she sort of started reaching out to different kitchens around Michigan. And she had one friend who was a caterer who, a
oh,
week after my mother had spoken to her, she called my mother and said, there was this Dr. Kellyanne Petrucci was doing a book on the bone broth diet. And
uh-huh.
it was before it was big, and she had her own company too, but they were looking for somebody to make 100 quarts of bone broth a week for the people that
Oh,
did not want
perfect,
to make it themselves. So we
perfect.
just said, yes, we'll do it. And then
Oh,
that sort
that
of
was a blessing.
pushed us to get our ducks in a row, find our sources for bones and vegetables and packaging. And it just grew from there.
Wonderful. And now this is only available on your website at this
Yes.
point, not in like Whole Foods or anything like that. Are you
Yeah,
working on this
we
contract?
We are working towards getting into stores. We just recently built our own commercial kitchen in Michigan. So now we have our own space and are able to produce more. But we are a small family business, and my mother still makes every single batch of broth. So we're
Mhm.
not using a co-packer. We're not cutting corners. We're really trying to keep an authentic product here that
Mhm.
is essentially made by mom and still done for 48 hours. And a lot of that would be a little hard to do, in mass scale when my mother is still so passionate about making sure it's done exactly right.
I'm glad she is passionate about that. That's great. I'm looking forward to ordering some, as a matter of fact. But tell everyone your website, how
Mhm.
they can get in touch with you to buy your Broth Masters bone broth. And you have the beef and the chicken, and then you
Mhm.
just have the chicken.
Yes. So our website is brothmasters.com, with an S at the end. So plural, brothmasters.com.
Mhm.
And we have everything from a 6-pack all the way to a 30-pack and subscriptions. And you can use a first time order code that we have on the website is broth, the number 4 life. That gives you $10 off your first order. And we ship nationwide, and it's a frozen product. So, it's real food. It's not like a powder or anything like that. And you can give us a follow on Instagram or Facebook as well under Broth Masters. And if you have questions, you can email us through the website as well. And we're hoping to have a new product out. Lemongrass is our next one that we're working on.
Wonderful.
So we're going to start trying to add a little bit more of different flavors and different nutrients that will help people.
Wonderful. Well, Laya Barak, thank you so much on such short notice for coming on Richmond Business Babes here in Richmond, Virginia. And we appreciate you telling us about the healing qualities of Broth Masters, and I'm sure it tastes delicious too.
Yes, I'm biased. She's my mother, but she's a fabulous cook in general, and she really has nailed this one. So
wonderful. Well, we're definitely going to have you back when we do the big food manufacturing series, because I think I think there are so many people out there who have a culinary idea, so to speak, but just don't know how to go about, because there's so many levels of
it's a lot
regulations and all of
lot
that.
of trial and error.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you for coming on, and we will be catching up with you very soon.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me, Lisa.
Oh, my pleasure. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Well, if you've just tuned in, you are listening to Richmond Business Babes here on WRWK 93.9 FM, The Work. You are also going to be hearing an encore presentation on WRIR Richmond Independent Radio 97.3 FM. I am your host, Lisa Linnell, and this is the Summer of Success. The sky's the limit. We first met with Elizabeth Willett, pilot and flight school instructor. We just recently were talking to Laya Barak. She and her mom are co-owners of Broth Masters, beef and chicken broth, which has many healing properties according to them and their doctors. So that's awesome. And now we are going to wrap up with a return guest. It is Amanda Rae Linas. She is the owner of Beloved Pet and Equine Photography and a recent brand new author of a pet book that will be supporting a nonprofit, Fetch for a Cure. So she's really here to talk mostly about her new book, which I'm so happy for her. So welcome, Amanda Rae Linas, back to Richmond Business Babes.
Thank you.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. I am so happy for you that you are now an author. Obviously, you are a photographer because your business is Beloved Pet and Equine Photography.
Yes.
So tell us about your book.
Yeah, so I was really excited to partner with Fetch a Cure this past year in the making of the book. The idea for the book, the title of the book is Dog Days of Summer. So kind of a play, play on that term. But the idea was to capture fun, nostalgic photos of dogs doing summer activities. Before the book, I basically put out a poll to people just asking, if you think back about summer throughout your life, what do you picture doing? And so people told me the activities that they just recall doing throughout their lives that created really great memories for them. And so I curated different dogs doing those things in the book.
You know what immediately came to my mind? Giving a dog a bath outside, especially like a long-haired dog, and then having them do the shake where the water is flying and they're shaking. That I don't know. That as soon as you said that, that's what popped into my mind. Did a lot of people say that?
Not giving the dog the bath, but more so like activities that they did. And there is a couple dogs shaking water off of them in the book at the river, and when one of the themes was a sprinkler, like running through sprinklers, So there's some dogs running through sprinklers, some dogs hanging out at the river, things like that.
So is every page of the book a photo of a person with a dog or a dog by itself, or some just people, not necessarily people and animals?
No people. There. It's
Oh,
all 100% dogs. Yep. So
ah,
the dogs are the stars of the show in this book.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's great. And how did you collaborate with Fetch for a Cure?
So the part of the making of the book raised money for them as far as, the dogs that were featured in the book. So we were able to raise over $4,000 for them. They're a really great organization that they work with doing like education and helping families with dogs with cancer. And so, because that can be really expensive. So they help fund that. They also have a Pen Pals program where they have dogs that need to be adopted, and they go into bring them into prisons and teach the inmates how to train the dogs. Then they're trained and then get adopted. So they have some really great programs that they do. So that's kind of how we partnered with them, was basically just the funds from the making of the book went to a portion of it went to them. And then 20% of the proceeds from the sales of the book is also going to be donated to Fetch a Cure as well.
That's beautiful. And Amanda Rae Linas, owner of Beloved Pet and Equine Photography, was the book your idea, or did they approach you?
No, it was my idea. I've wanted to do a book for a while, and 2 years ago I got the idea for the book for Dog Days of Summer, and the year before last year I was hoping to start working on it, but it did not happen. So last year I said,
yeah,
I said
it anyway, and you're very busy.
Yeah. So I said it's going to happen this year, and so
Okay.
it just was released this past Sunday and at the book launch.
That's right. Yes, because you invited me. That's how I heard of it. You were at River City Roll, right?
Yes,
I love that venue. That is just a fun.
Oh, it's great. We were on their dog friendly patio. It was a really good time. We had some of the dogs signing the books with their paw prints.
I like
And there's
that.
another chance this upcoming Saturday is Fetch Fest at Mainline Brewery, which is Fetch a Cure's like one of their big events they do every year. It's a pet wellness fair. So you can bring your dog, get them checked out for lumps and bumps, and just learn all about pet health. And so we will all be there with the book, and some of the dogs that are featured in the book will also be there to sign books with their paws as well.
Oh, I love that. And Amanda Rae Linas, is she Zooming now on StreamYard or not? Or were you just on the phone? You are? Because I want you to hold up the book.
Okay.
You're in the way, Ron. No offense. But I don't see, you're blocking the monitor, so I can't see her.
Can you see it?
There you go. Okay, yeah. Can you scoot over, Ron? Oh, that's good. That's good. I like that. That's really good.
Yeah.
It looks like popsicles, but it's surfboards, right? The cover.
Surfboards, yep. And we had, different.
Oh, the lemonade stand. I love that.
So there's different colors.
Oh, I love that.
The Chesterfield County Fair was a sponsor of the book, so they let us come in and do photos at the fair. The slips at Kinsale were a sponsor, so they let us come in and do a session on one of their boats. So we have dogs on a boat. And then the Richmond Flying Squirrels were also a sponsor. They let us come in and do pictures at the baseball field.
Very cool. You are such a great photographer. Am I allowed to say that, Ron? He gets mad when I endorse people, but Amanda Rae Linas, you are such a great photographer. And yes. Now, what about the copy? Did you write that?
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
There's not a ton of texts at the baseball game.
Yeah.
But so each kind of theme has a little write-up, just talking a little bit about summer baseball, going to the carnival during the summer, a little of my experience, a little of history about things and stuff like that. But I did write it as well.
How many books will you need to sell to recoup your initial investment in the publication process?
So the good thing about the way that I did it as a benefit photo book is that the dogs who are in the book made a generous donation to be in the book, and so
You
part
are
part of
poor,
the proceeds.
brilliant, Shark Tank worthy millionaire person wise. That was smart. If you want
Yeah.
your dog to be in the book, please show us some love. That's great.
Yes.
So you're already profitable.
Yes. Yep.
Good.
It's already paid for itself, and
Good.
then the donation.
Was that your
Yeah.
own idea or did you read that somewhere else?
There's a lot of pet photographers who do similar things, and they partner with organizations that they really like the work that they do. And that way it raises money for the organization. It provides the funds needed to actually produce the book. And so that way it's kind of a win-win for everyone.
That's great. Wonderful.
Mhm.
Well, what was the publication process like for you, as this is the first time you've published a book?
Yeah, so this was a self-publish. I self-published it. So the process was actually fairly easy because I didn't have to go through a publisher. I just got an IBN number online, went to the Library of Congress and registered it. I had a printer or that creates books and does a lot of photo
Quality
books.
looks very good.
Yeah. And
Are you
so
pleased with
basically
quality?
I just went through them, and they do a lot of photo books, which they have really nice quality, which
What
I
printer
wanted.
is that?
Huh?
What printer is that?
Marathon Press.
Is that here in Richmond?
No. Trying to think of where they're located. I don't remember where they're located, but they do good publishing work as far as books go.
Wonderful. So now that the book is published and you're doing the publicity tour, going to all the breweries and having the signings with the paws, with the dogs who are now superstars in Richmond, right?
Yeah.
So what have you learned about the publication process, and would you go forward with a second book?
Yeah, I would. It was a lot of work putting together the book, especially the way that I did it because of the theme of the book that I did. All of the photo shoots had to have lots of different props that I had to, take care of. Some of the photo shoots had 5 dogs in them, so they were outside. So we had to find, a day that was not raining, that all 5 dogs were available. And so the scheduling was really difficult and took a lot of time. And then just keeping track of all the stuff I needed for all the photo sessions took a lot of time. So just the amount of time it took me to create the book was one thing that I learned. I expected it to be a lot of time, but it was more work than I even thought it was.
So that time, it's like, you have to look at the cost benefit ratio because you're losing time from doing your normal photography work. So knowing that now, would you, and perhaps doing another book, would you structure it differently or not?
Maybe a little bit, but I don't think so because of the way that I did it. I was compensated for my time creating it, not maybe as much as I would have been as I would have as if I were doing regular photo sessions, but just the pure fact that I have a book out there now also is like good marketing too. Like probably people know about me who never would have known about me before. So
what's your second book going to be?
I'm not sure yet.
Maybe horses.
Maybe. Yeah, I might do a second edition of the Dog Days of Summer eventually, but
yeah, the horses. I mean, horses at a lemonade stand would be difficult.
Oh no, we can make a giant lemonade stand. Have them sticking their heads through.
That was cute. Very cute.
Horse Days of Summer.
Well, yeah, and thank you for coming on and showing our talking about it to our listeners, and then of course we live stream. And for anyone who has just tuned in, we are talking to Amanda Rae Linas. She is the owner of Beloved Pet Dog and Equine Photography, and now the author of, and the name of the book is again?
Dog Days of Summer.
Dog Days of Summer. Okay. So, and 10% or 20% goes to Fetch for a Cure?
20% of the proceeds are going to go to Fetch a Cure.
That's very generous.
Mhm.
Very generous. That's great. So tell everyone how they can get in touch with you. You said you are going to be at Mainline Brewery again, and just in case they I guess they could purchase the book online as well.
Yeah, they can. So I'll be at Mainline Brewery on this upcoming Saturday, and I'm just double checking the events from 1 to 4 for Fetch Fest. My website is belovedpetphoto.com, and you can reach out to me, or I don't have a link yet, but I'm planning to put one on there by tomorrow to buy the book. So yeah, you can buy the book online, or you can come to Fetch Fest on Saturday and meet some of the dogs and see the book in person.
Aw.
Mhm.
How much is the book?
It's $76.
$76?
Yeah, it's a fine art coffee table book. So it's large format, high quality images in the book. So
Oh,
it's
fantastic.
considered like a fine art like coffee table book.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just surprised it was that much, but it is going to a worthy cause as well.
Yeah.
So wonderful. Well, it's been great having you back on Richmond
Thank
Business
you.
Babes, and we wish you much success with the book. And tell everyone how they can get in touch with you again.
Yeah, my website is belovedpetphoto.com, and my Instagram and Facebook is just Beloved Pet Photo.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Amanda Rae, for coming back on Richmond Business
Yes.
Babes.
Thank
All
you
the
for
best.
having me again. Nice to chat with you again.
Absolutely. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Well, that was Amanda Rae Linas. As you heard, she is the owner of Beloved Pet and Equine Photography, and now the author and obviously photographer of Dog Days of Summer, her new book, her first book, one of many future books, I'm sure. And that 20% of it, as she stated, goes for is donated to Fetch for a Cure. So that was great. So this pretty much wraps up Summer of Success. The sky is the limit. We hope you enjoyed the show. You are listening to Richmond Business Babes. I'm your host, Lisa Linnell, and we broadcast the show on 93.9 FM, The Work in Midlothian, Virginia. And also you can hear us now as an encore presentation on WRIR, Richmond Independent Radio 97.3 FM. Thank you, Melissa Vaughn. We really appreciate it.
Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah. And also I have a website for if you've missed any portion of the show, you can always replay it on the podcast. So that would be richmondbusinessbabes.com is my website. If you are a business babe and you would like to come on and talk about your business, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is Lisa Linnell, Linnell. Lisa is Lisa. So it's Lisa Linnell at hotmail.com. That's me. Or you can shoot me an email once you're on my website, Richmond Business Babes. But we are always looking for women in business doing phenomenal things. And we're all about celebrating your success. So thank you, the remarkable Ron, my producer. And if you are a Richmond Business Babe, you go get them. Thank you.